Here we go. All right. All right. We finally got Twilight on. And once again, I'm the gay Charlie on YouTube. Just I'm also Wonder of the Arts on Instagram, and who else am I? Who am I else? I thought I had another name.
Dang, man.
Dang Man, yeah, I'm Dang Man on PlayStation. Yeah, that's. I'm so used to gay Charlie at this point. But so Twilight, if you just want to say a few things about yourself.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Twilight TA, and that's pretty much it. I'm just, I've been around on the internet. Play a little bit of Mario Maker in my day. A lot of Pokemon, for sure. That's one of my favorites. And then, I just make videos here and there to help people that are struggling with difficult challenges in certain games.
Yeah, we actually met on Super Mario Maker 2. I was on Twitch, just sharing my levels, seeing how people reacted to them and what I needed to fix. And Twilight, he was very calm and collected. Reacted to my level just fine. Wasn't didn't get too upset. I don't think he got upset at all. You were actually very calm, from what I remember.
No, your challenges were pretty fun, actually. I think they basically connected with me.
Okay.
Your level design philosophy was pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I want to get back into it. It's just I think it's still pretty lively. I actually had someone play one of my levels maybe a month ago, and it was still pretty fun. This guy was actually very calm. I ended up following him. I can't remember what level I had him play, but yeah, I was working on 2 levels before I stopped. One was called Syndrome Sky, and the other one was actually kind of a sequel to I can't believe it's not Sin. I was going to call it Sin Says. I actually had it released at one time, but I had there were a lot of design problems. Uh-oh.
You were kind of testing it out, seeing how people feel about it.
Yeah, one guy flew right through it, and I was like, "Oh no, I can't have that." I remember that happened before on let's see, what was it? Heck, I can't remember the name of the level. Conveyor Annoyance. It's the one with the conveyor based design.
You know what? I think I remember that one. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yeah, man.
I made a few videos, I think, on some of your levels because I think they were pretty good.
Conveyor Annoyance. Something like that.
It was something like that. Yeah, it was definitely something like that.
But I had someone play it, and he just started flying through it, and what I did, what I'm about to say next, I admit it was bad. But as he was playing it, as I was so upset that he was flying through it, I deleted it as he was playing it.
Oh no!
And I feel bad about it, but I was like, man, this guy has such a smug attitude, and he's flying through the level. I'm just gonna take it down and work on the design, because obviously he knows how to take care of these obstacles, and that's the point of my levels is to have it difficult, and you have to figure it out how you got it like a puzzle. You have to figure out how to play it, but also it needs to still be difficult. And there was something that I didn't design it well enough for him just to get stuck on it for a little bit.
Well, some players though, you won't be able to get them. They're just naturally talented, or they're just very good at reading the game. I think some players like there's a popular one. I forgot his name now. The Tap, the Beast. I remember. Yeah, he's just naturally talented. Like he'll come to a room for the first time, and he's very good at reading what he's supposed to do right away. And there's just some players are just really good like that.
Okay, yeah, I don't know who that is. I think I heard maybe his name before, but yeah, I mean,
he's one of those long-time Mario players. He's pretty popular in terms of playing challenging levels. And there's a few names that come to mind when when you think about people that are just naturally talented at the game. There's the Beast, there's Little Curbs. Um, Panga is still good, but you can tell he's just not as into some of the difficult levels as he used to be.
Yeah, I mean, it must be nice to be able to just have all that time to play like that and just be able to earn that skill. I mean, unfortunately, well, not really unfortunately. I mean, I got a career that I have to uphold, and I only have like maybe a few hours to game alongside of my career. So obviously, it's just I cannot adapt, to becoming effective like that. You know what I mean? And plus, it's just
Yeah.
I don't like turning gaming into a chore. Just
It's
like
a
how
young person's game. It's a young person's game. You gotta have time, to play to actually get good. And
oh
it
yeah.
doesn't matter if you have natural talent. It doesn't really matter if you're not practicing, you're not actually playing. You're not going to be actually, as good as you might want to be. So
Yeah, it's
if you
like
don't have time, it's just not gonna work
it's
out.
like with skateboarding. I hear I've listened to like some of the Jackass guys and Tony Hawk, and if you want to stay effective at skateboarding, you have to do it basically every day. You got to do it a few hours a day if you want to stay on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some things are just like that. You got to put in the time. You got to actually put in the work, and it'll pay off.
Yeah, and see, with me, I don't play games every day. I don't play the same game every day. Because it's like with Elden Ring. I played Elden Ring. The first few months it was out. Just going through the little standards that I have for the reviews. Just no damage. Sometimes I wouldn't even roll. It depends on how many iframes were generous, and without the heads-up display. And I was surprised how much I was able to get done. Now, of course, I'm at the end game, and there are a lot more iframes to discover, so it's just taking longer. Plus, I got to really be in the mood to do it. I finally got my PlayStation 5 moved into my little desk area where I have all my recording equipment, so I'm probably going to be a little bit more active on it. I'm actually practicing on Melania right now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a fun boss fight.
So right now on her, she's fine. I'm not too crazy about her first phase. It drags on a little bit too long. Um,
Yeah,
she's
especially when you're not trying to get hit, for sure.
yeah. Well, I mean, the whole her healing herself is not really a big deal because I mean, if I do get hit, it gives me more time to practice, and plus, in the end, it's not even going to matter because I'm going to eventually get it where I'm
Right.
not getting hit. But
Exactly.
with my playstyle, the most satisfying strategy I've found so far is basically just kind of baiting her and going in, and she has this weird idling. Do you know what idling is?
Yeah, no, she won't attack you until you start doing something. She does that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
see,
sometimes you'll last longer in the fight not engaging her than trying to attack her.
and a lot of her animations are very subtle. That's one thing I'm having to pay attention to because I'm like one charge move looks like another, and so I had to find very subtle tells. I'm like, okay, well I got to prepare myself for a certain charge attack because one for some reason that throws me off is when she prepares for a charge attack, and it's probably the most noticeable one is where she does the uppercut and then the vertical slam down. For some reason, that one throws me off every time. I want to walk up to her and avoid it, but it seems like right when I come out of my rolling animation, she gets me.
Yeah, no, that move, especially the beginning of it, like the actual initial hit for that, she can basically chain it out of anything. I've seen her do a full combo, and then it's like, okay, your combo is over, and then she'll turn around, do the uppercut, and then the slam down with the sword. I'm like, come on, you were done. There's no
Yeah,
way.
and as I'm practicing her, I'm having to cut down on attack motions basically because at first I was like, okay, well maybe I can get a second hit in, but now it's like, oh well, that's not consistent anymore, so I'm gonna just do one hit at a time, and it's not so far not really my favorite fight I've seen in Elden Ring. I mean, it's not that as difficult. It's just kind of it's really just more of an annoying design in my opinion.
Yeah, I think for the most part, the main thing that everybody hated for the longest time was the waterfowl dance. That was
That's actually
that
not
has
that bad.
killed more
Um,
people than
it
anything else in the game.
it is very problematic. You if you're up against the wall of the arena and she starts doing it, you're screwed. However, if
Yeah.
you have enough room to run and you time it well enough, you can just basically run away, and whenever she does her little hop with it, you can just run towards her, and then she'll just finish off, and then you can just continue on your way. But the problem with it, she might do it multiple times, and the positioning might not be in your favor. So there's definitely a lot of RNG with the positioning, unfortunately, and that's one of the biggest problems I have about her, because you basically just got to keep practicing and hope that your positioning falls in favor of that attack alone.
Yeah, a lot of people were having trouble because they had to basically rely on either getting lucky with that move or they have to spend the whole fight preparing for that move. Like in their mind, because you don't know when it's coming out. She can literally do it at the beginning as soon as she
Mm-hmm.
starts the fight, you know? And just people are literally playing the whole fight in the back of their head preparing for that specific move,
Yeah.
making sure they're not in any position that's disadvantages for that. So it definitely is not the most fun fight,
Yeah.
especially, for like somebody who's fighting it for the first few times, but man, is it satisfying when you do defeat her.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten to the second phase yet. I'm just still practicing the first phase a lot, and really, like I said, it's just the bad positioning of the waterfowl attack is what usually gets me. And sometimes she has this one. I think she has four different charge attacks, and I'm still trying to adapt to the outcome of them. Like one charge attack is really fast. She'll dash towards you and spam you. Now that spacing is very much involved with that one. Is where I had to basically, if she starts attacking with you start using her basic attacks, I know she's probably going to most likely use it, so I got to just keep my distance basically, and hope that she uses one of the charge attacks that I like to follow up on, like the thrust or the jump sweep. And my favorite one to follow up on, which allows me for a full charge R2 attack, which is her uppercut and vertical slam. And I think that's the only
Yeah.
one where I can do an R2 attack. I don't know. I'll have to play around with the waterfowl outcome more. I might be able to squeeze in a R2 attack if I'm able to position myself close enough, because I'm using the now Knight Cavalry's halberd. I think that's what it's
Yeah, I
called.
know you like that weapon. I was gonna tell you sometimes, maybe if you if you're interested in switching up your weapon playstyle, a faster weapon actually does really, really well against her. Because as much as she seems like she has armor, she does not have armor. So you could basically get a few hits in or a full combo in. And she has two types of hyper armor that kind of lets her escape your attacks and then try to go in for a counter attack. Heavy weapons are good. Obviously, you get your one or two hits in, and then you prepare for the next attack. But with quick weapons, you can actually do a series of attacks to her, and then as soon as she hyper armor counters, so that she tries to run away from your attacks and then reposition into a counter attack, that's when you basically go into defensive mode and try to dodge her attacks. So at that point, if you're using a fast attack, you're the one controlling the fight rather than waiting for her to give you an opening. You basically sort of create your own openings.
Well, doesn't she have a
I don't know.
bad cancel, like like basically a stagger cancel? Like if you stagger her and you try to go in for another stagger, she could cancel out of it immediately and tag you.
Yeah, she can cancel out of it. Usually what she does, she'll cancel out of it and then backsteps. So she'll basically retreat to try to go in for a counterattack afterwards. But that sort of gives you that mental check that says, "Oh, okay, she just counter rolled away. That means now I need to go into defensive mode because she's about to counterattack." And then it's basically like a free tell that she's about to do something.
Is it just me, or does does she remind you of Ornstein a little bit, like a more advanced version of Ornstein?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can tell that From Software had some inspiration from their previous boss fights. A little bit of Ornstein, a little bit of what you call her from Bloodborne,
Maria.
Maria from Bloodborne.
Well,
Um,
there's a lot of subtle tells with Melania, like like her backstepping and her side strafing, and some of her attacks, can feel very similar to Ornstein. The only thing missing, from Ornstein is just the waterfowl attack and I mean,
yeah.
I mean, even the charge attacks from Ornstein are very similar. I mean, I don't know, maybe I haven't looked up the right forums or not, but I haven't seen anyone else compare the two.
I haven't seen anything on that either. You're right. Um, but second phase is honestly more of the first phase. The only two differences, I don't know if you care about spoilers or not.
I don't care.
Okay, so the only two differences is now she has Scarlet Rot added onto her attacks, and she does a couple of Scarlet Rot AoE attacks. And she also has this one move where she uses sort of shadow clones, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
that attack before her, and then she finishes off the combo of the shadow clones. It's an interesting design, but it's actually pretty hard to dodge. So many people die to that, probably as much as waterfowl, believe it or not. And she can still do waterfowl, so
Oh, okay.
it's
Yeah.
like she becomes a little too much, honestly.
So the second phase isn't like more satisfying. It's just just a little bit more annoying.
It's a little bit more annoying, but she's a cooler fight. I think second phase definitely redeems the first phase in terms of how the first phase sort of makes you feel like it's a little bit more boring. Sometimes she's very very defensive. She's not gonna go on the attack. You kind of have to bait her into attacking you. Whereas in second phase, she is all attack. So it's a lot easier for you to predict her because she's very aggressive in second phase.
Mm-hmm.
But also she's just because she's so aggressive, if you're not good at dodging and you're not good at reading what she's doing, it could be like you'll probably die quicker, essentially.
Okay. And my problem is, her first phase can get really boring by the first half. When I get when I get her down to to half of her health, I feel like the fight should be over by then, and it just keeps going. I got another half of health to deal with, and it's not that bad. It's just I daydream really badly if I'm just kind of doing the same thing for too long. And it's kind of one thing I suffer from because one thing, one reason why I stayed away from doing solo level 1 playthroughs for a while because I was like, man, I just don't want to have to do 10-minute boss battles because just doing the same thing for too long, I'm just going to start thinking about Legos or other games. I mean, it's something I do involuntarily. I mean, I start daydreaming if I start getting bored.
Yeah, well, second phase is definitely not as boring as first phase. First phase, she is very much, in counter attack mode. She'll be aggressive once in a while, but for the most part, she's in counter attack mode. She's waiting for you to do something so that she can counter you.
Yeah.
But in second phase, it's very much she is aggressive and she's coming at you, and you need to know how to dodge her, how to counter attack her. And she has a little bit of armor, not a lot, but she actually does have a little bit of armor. It won't matter for your weapon type, but if you were using a quick weapon in first phase where you were staggering her on every hit, on second phase, you won't stagger her on every hit, and that trips some people up, and they'll get hit at that point.
Okay. I imagine it's just going to be a little grind. I'm probably just going to have to, do a few hours of practicing at her and then just kind of walk away and then come back until I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's just, slept on it, so...
No, I think so. Yes, if you're trying to get the no hit, it's definitely gonna take a little bit of practice and work.
And I had to step out of my solo level 55 cap and go up to 100 because my attack input was just ridiculous. And it would have made the fight significantly longer. I've noticed that in the in-game boss fights at solo level 1 go up to 10 minutes long. I'm like, man, screw that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have to be perfect for such a long time. It's the ultimate endurance test, especially in
Yeah,
this
and
game.
I just don't like endurance difficulties. That's pretty much where I draw the line. If it's something about 10 minutes long, I'm like, nah, it's not for me. I'll play
Nah.
something else.
Yeah, no,
It's not how
it's kind
Monster
of
Hunter ended up. I mean, I know I don't even know how what's the short. I mean, I realize if you get powerful enough, you can go back and fights don't last that long. I mean, but here's another thing. I want a good medium. I don't want fights to be too short. I don't want to walk into a boss and kill it in 5 hits. I want to go in there and spend time with it. Being able to avoid every move. I mean, you see how my boss reviews are. I mean, I explore basically most of the attacks because that's on purpose. I want that experience. I don't want to go in there, kill the boss in one shot, and be like, oh yeah, this boss was okay. It was pretty easy. Just went in there and one shot at him. I mean,
yeah.
with the Soldier of Godric, I don't know if you saw that review, but I think I spent a couple minutes on him, or maybe a
Just
minute.
like that. Yeah.
I purposely had to one. I mean, I had to lower my weapon like severely because of how low his health was. I had to one hand the club and basically just bait out his attacks and go in and just hit him and circle around him and just basically try to see every attack he had. And
Yeah.
it was
I
crazy
think
having to set him up like that.
Yeah, I think From Software did it on purpose, honestly. They wanted the player to feel some sort of satisfaction right off the get-go of defeating something.
Hmm.
And what more satisfaction can somebody get when they say, "Oh, I beat a boss." Even though the boss is not really a boss, it's more like a regular enemy, just in a boss setting, if you will.
Hmm.
They had a lot of that in this game, which is fine because I understand the open nature of the game. They can't really if they had to design completely unique bosses for all of the bosses that they had. I feel like it would be too much, honestly. Especially for somebody like who wants to speedrun the game or play it more than once or do New Game Plus or play a second character, all that stuff. It has its pros and cons, in my opinion, to have certain recycled designs or certain bosses that are maybe the same bosses but scattered throughout the world.
Yeah, and
Um,
you can't have every boss at Dark Eater Mitter level. Definitely, I
right.
don't. I don't want
Yeah,
that at
exactly.
all. I mean,
You know,
definitely a good mix, and I feel like Elden Ring has. I feel like they did that pretty well. I feel like some bosses still though have their health is just way too low though, but that's just me. I mean, maybe someone will go in there,
no,
like you said, and be like, "Oh well, I mean, it looks like I'm making decent progress, and I'm motivated, and I'll keep moving on."
yeah, and I get it too because Breath of the Wild did the same thing, and I completely understand that. So the way that Breath of the Wild did it is Elden Ring sort of took inspiration from that and did it a little better, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Breath of the Wild made it so that it doesn't matter which direction you decide to go in the world. They just give you the map. They say you can go anywhere you want. It doesn't matter which direction you go. The game, has a way of showing you a little bit of everything, no matter what path you decide to take.
Hmm.
And that's a good design philosophy because even if somebody doesn't play the full game, they'll still feel like they had a full experience. They still feel like, for the most part, they've met every enemy type or as many bosses as they can.
Hmm.
And I think that's a good design idea. The way that Breath of the Wild did it is the further away from the center of the map that you went, the more powerful the enemies that you would find and the different bosses. So if you go to the northeast corner of the map from the center, as you're going towards there, the enemies get progressively harder, progressively, more challenging, and you get to see basically every enemy type by going in that direction. And the same thing would happen if you go to like the southwest or southeast. You're, just completely different direction. You would still encounter, for the most part, every enemy type and every sort of level of that enemy type, if you will. And Elden Ring did a similar thing, which was good in my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah. I didn't really play enough Breath of the Wild. I tried that game maybe twice, and I think the weapon durability thing I just couldn't really kept kicking me out of the experience.
That did not fly for a lot of people. They hated it, But at the end of the day, I think what the philosophy behind it, I understand, but I like when developers give players choice. I don't like being forced to use a different weapon. I like having the choice to use a different weapon. Yeah, give me all these weapons. That's great. I like it, but making them break so easily because you want to force me to try a different weapon, it's just, in my opinion, not the best. You want to let the player experiment, but at the same time, you don't want to force them to experiment.
Or at least develop a mechanic where the weapon can repair, like in a very satisfying way. The weapon can repair, and something where you don't have to go way off to fix it. Just something you can incorporate into the gameplay, where like, oh, if I have a chance, I can perform this move and my weapon would be completely repaired in battle or something like that. Like, maybe parrying or something like that. You could possibly restore the weapon. I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
Definitely adding a mechanic to make it so that if somebody wants to keep using the same thing, they can. It's just, you're going to have to do something in order to continue using what you like. I definitely understand that, and I would agree with that. Another thing they could have done was, since the game is so big and so vast, they could have made it so that you could find unbreakable versions of your favorite weapon, but they would be, in later areas of the game. Say, you find a broadsword that, you're using at the beginning of the game, it breaks because it's not that very good of a broadsword, but I don't know, you make it to this crazy tower like halfway across the map, and you find the same broadsword that you liked, but this one can't break. And that, I feel like that would not only incentivize people to kind of like explore more, because they would want to find all the unbreakable versions of their weapons or whatever.
I mean,
and at the same time.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna. At the same time, it just gives them that, that will to experiment, because now that they found an unbreakable version of a weapon, of course they're gonna want to try it. Like when I was playing Breath of the Wild, I got to the point where I was hoarding weapons. I was saving weapons because I didn't know when I was going to encounter, a big enemy that I would want to use one of these weapons on. So I would run around the map using all of the garbage weapons and then keeping all the good weapons and never using them because I didn't want them to break.
Right. I mean, it's almost a really good system, and I really hope that if the sequel somehow just takes it and just creates a really motivating system out of it, I'll definitely try it. And if I'm listening to a review and they're like, oh yeah, the weapon durability now is much more motivating and repairing it, blah blah blah, and it's got this system, I'm like, hey, okay, I guess I'll buy it and try it out. Maybe I'll like it.
Yeah, I have high hopes for the the sequel. I think they're gonna learn from some of the mistakes. Like, believe it or not, Breath of the Wild obviously is not a perfect game, but it did so much right. I can see them at least looking at the things that players didn't like and the things that, they didn't actually get right, and, look to see how they can make it more fun and not as annoying and tedious.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the world of Breath of the Wild definitely is beautiful, and that's one thing I can definitely give it. And usually, most of the time, open world games, they do develop a very beautiful open world. However, the problem comes is when there's not a whole lot of stuff to do in it, or not a whole lot of motivation to explore, where they just kind of give you everything on the map, like a lot of the Ubisoft games.
Yes. I'm gonna make that comparison. Yeah, for sure. I agree.
And I love the Far Cry games. I played pretty much every single one except for the first. I tried the first game and I couldn't get into it very much. I think it definitely could use a modern day upgrade with smoother controls. And the number 2 has I don't remember. I tried number 2 when it was free on Plus on PlayStation 3, and I remember it was very unique, but something just wasn't quite there. And then finally, I tried number 3, Far Cry 3, and I was like, okay, well, they finally, whatever they were trying to achieve in the first 2 games, they finally did in the third one, and that's when I finally got, more attached to the series.
I think the only Far Cry game I played, it was probably Far Cry Primal. I played that a few times. It was fun. I thought it was cool. I never really tried any of the other Far Cry games. Same thing with Assassin's Creed, actually. I think I played Assassin's Creed Origins. You know what? I don't remember the name. I think it was the one with the desert, the one that was in Egypt, set in Egypt. I played that for a little bit. Again, didn't really like fall in love with it, so I kind of stopped.
Hmm.
But that's my extent of the extent of my um, experience with those games.
Yeah, I think I dropped off Assassin's Creed. I actually started kind of skipping around after Assassin's Creed 3, and I saw Black Flag, and the pirate stuff looked really cool, but I think I only played maybe an hour of it, and I dropped it. And then pretty much after that, I just completely dropped Assassin's Creed off because it just started feeling like too much of the same game. Just kind of especially the missions. I swear. Well, actually, no. I did try Odyssey, but the moment I started following an NPC around, I deleted the game. I cannot stand that. If I try a new game and the moment I have to start walking around with the NPC, I get very discouraged. And I know, I mean, The Last of Us is one of the best games I have ever played, and that's what you do at the beginning of the game is follow an NPC around, but it doesn't last long enough. It doesn't last long enough to where I'm annoyed with it because it looks like it's leading to something. And games like Ghost of Tsushima and Assassin's Creed, where you're following an NPC, it just feels like it's forever. But in a game like The Last of Us, it feels like I'm more engaged and immersed with it somehow. I don't know, I guess it's just maybe what's the story involved around it. Of course, I don't like it happening all the time. And it's only at the beginning of the game. Once you're past that mark, it's just main gameplay after that.
I'm so a little bit ashamed to say I've never played The Last of Us. I
Oh
actually
wow.
own the first one. I own the remastered version. I have never played it. I've played all of the Uncharted games. All the Naughty Dog stuff. I love those games, and for some reason I've never had the drive to try it. As much as people tell me, "Hey, it's a great game. It's an amazing game. You need to play it." Same thing with Horizon Zero Dawn. I've never actually sat down to play those games. I know I should. They're on my bucket list. But it's just, I don't know. I've never actually played them.
Yeah, Horizon Zero
And
Dawn, I could not get into that one. I actually finished it, and I really couldn't see the appeal other than the robot dinosaurs. I think the gameplay is almost there where I like it, but other than that, I could not really grasp and get immersed into the game itself.
yeah, I watched like an hour or so. My cousin was playing it, and I watched him play, and um, it looked all right. For me, I think I do like a good bow in a game,
Hmm.
and I think that's nice. But I didn't know how I felt about the bow being basically the only attack source. I mean, yeah, you did have a melee, but it didn't really feel like you would want to be using your melee attacks.
Hmm.
For the
Um,
most part, it was the
my
bow.
my biggest gripe was just how empty the open world felt, and plus all the heavy exposition and dialogue I could not stand. And plus, the main character just acted so wooden to everything that was being told to her. That just drove me nuts because I'm just at some point I just start skipping through all the dialogue. I mean, I'm tapping X. I'm like, okay, can we hurry on so I can hopefully somehow get attached to the gameplay in some way. And it was just kind of a mess, and I really
Oh,
had no business finishing the game, but I was just hoping it would get better.
yeah, my brother loves it. I mean,
Yeah,
we generally have the same taste, so it's kind of interesting that he loves that game so much, and I didn't really. care for it when I watched a little bit of it.
I mean, it's great
Yeah.
that it has an audience. I'm glad it got a sequel. I won't try it out because it has basically the same stuff in it as the first one, and I'm not going to purchase it just so I could just go through the same, forcing to like something experience that I had with the first game. And I just, if it's for free, I mean, well, not for free, but accessible on PlayStation Plus, I'll definitely try it out. Just maybe something will change my mind, but there's that small chance that that's not worth paying full price for.
Yeah, no, I understand. And at the end of the day, that's life. You
Yeah.
can't. Not every game is gonna be for you, and not. You're not gonna vibe with every design decision. Like
Yeah.
you might find a game that other people might not like. You might love it. So
Hmm.
I know I have games that are like that.
Yeah, right now, Overcooked, the Overcooked series and Moving Out they're kind of my underdog games right now. They're not too popular. They're kind of just right to where they're going to get sequels, and I'm going to love them to death. But I'm thinking that
I,
maybe the Overcooked's next game might be the one to put them on the mainstream list. But I don't know. In a way I kind of hope not, but in a way I hope they do. But I really hope number three they really just kind of do everything they can possibly think of, just make a humongous game out of it. Of course, not do too much because you don't want to end up like Crash Bandicoot 4, where you have so many levels that are way too long that could have been reduced down to smaller sections. I don't know how you
well,
felt
yeah.
about Grand Theft Auto 4. I mean, sorry, Crash Bandicoot 4.
No, I was gonna say actually. Speaking of that, that is one thing that a lot of devs don't seem to get right. No, well, not every dev seem to get right. It's the length of time
Yeah.
for something. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't want something to overstay its welcome. You want something to just be good enough, like in terms of time that it takes the player to go through, and yeah,
And
it's a fine balance.
yeah, the original trilogy of Crash Bandicoot was just perfect. The length and everything for the level designs was just, wasn't too short, wasn't too long. Um, but Crash Bandicoot 4, you get these levels that are just ungodly long, and then it kind of introduces that attention span problem that I have. I get in the middle of the level and I'm not even, I'm halfway done and there's still just so much to go through and I'm trying to do a speed run. I'm like, now I'm thinking about Star Wars. It's just, I don't know, that might be a very specific problem for me, but it's just, you know, I try so hard to just kind of make adjustments to where it's not as long, but I also want to remain in my gameplay standards because I don't want something to be too easy, but I also don't want it to be too long. It's just trying to find that medium, is kind of a struggle a lot when it comes to certain games.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear that. I think maybe for you, the a checkpoint system and certain types of games works really well, where basically your goal is to get to the next checkpoint, and you'll probably feel accomplished that like you did something by getting to the next checkpoint rather than having this big long trek for what you have to do essentially.
Well, at least sectioned off. I mean, checkpoints isn't really the problem. I just, I get into a kind of perfectionist mode where I want to totally dominate a section of the game. But then if I have to totally dominate the next section, that kind of discourages me from wanting to perfect the first section. Kind of like, similar to Elden Ring. You got, there's a fight called Malekith. The Beast, Clergyman, and Malekith, two totally different boss fights. I
Oh
ended
my
up,
God, yeah.
I ended up, kind of mastering both of them. I feel like I was over leveled a little bit. It's not like I killed them in a few hits. It's just It was one of those situations where I had to level up to 100, and I know I could have handled the fight at 55. I just wanted to get my attack input up because that was the only way I could because I had my weapon all the way maxed out, and basically there's nothing else I could have done. And so my favorite part of the fight was the Beast Clergyman, and I didn't like Malekith as much. I think Beast Clergyman reminded me a lot of a classic Dark Souls boss compared to Malekith, which is more like a Dark Souls 3 boss, I guess, is the way to really kind of describe it.
I think I see. I think I see what you mean. Malekith was definitely a lot more flashy and moving around a
Yeah.
lot, whereas the Beast Clergyman was more grounded.
Yeah, and I felt like his moveset was a lot more satisfying to dominate and eventually defeat. And then you get to Malekith, and like Malekith, and obviously he's significantly different. I thought that was really weird for a boss with two phases. Usually the second phase is the same as the first phase, just with more attacks.
A few new moves, yeah, but
Yeah.
not a completely different, like literally completely different moveset.
Yeah, and the bosses individually are not bad at all. In fact, I mean, I would probably consider them my favorite fights, but they're all in one package, and I just do not enjoy them as much.
I think I definitely agree with you with that because I do feel like, both Beast Clergyman / Malekith as well as the final boss. I don't know if you know the final boss or if you've gotten to the final boss.
Yeah. I've pretty much seen every boss. I didn't look anything up until I got to the end game because I was just, I'm like, okay, I'm far enough into the game, and I don't have that much time, right, really, to kind of discover stuff on my own at this point. So that's when I kind of started looking stuff up, and now armor sets I'm not looking. There are still stuff that I'm not looking up because I still want to be surprised. But when it comes to stuff like just boss information, not weak, not exactly. I mean, yeah, not overpowered weaknesses, just more information about the boss I could probably utilize with my gameplay standard in some way, because these bosses, they have so many iframes I got to look for. It just kind of helps if I just kind of read a little bit, just give me a little nudge about the spacing of the boss.
Yeah, and honestly, speaking of that, I think one thing that I felt like Elden Ring did, and it was kind of unfortunate that it did that. I felt like the end game was sort of rushed.
Mm.
Because I felt like they either ran out of space or ran out of time, and they had so many ideas, but they didn't want to leave the ideas on the drawing board, and they just implemented it. Like, basically, like you said, the Malekith with Beast Clergyman, they could have been two separate bosses. You did not have to fight them in that way. I understand from a story perspective, it was cool to know that, but at the same time, you could have fought the Beast Clergyman at some other point throughout the story, and then you don't kill him. And then when you make it to that area inside the storm, he reveals himself to be Malekith because, I don't know, you're here for the rune of death or whatever. And then, like, they could have separated them, and it would not have messed anything up. I do feel the same way about the final boss. I do feel like they could have separated them, and in terms of lore and the story, it would have still been fine and great. And
yeah,
I don't know. I guess maybe it's just my personal opinion about it, but I do feel like it would have been better if they had like a completely different section or area, having to deal with, the two phases of these bosses.
Yeah, I haven't heard good things about the Elden Beast, and that's kind of a shame. You would think you would want to, you would, for a final boss, you want to hear really good things about it. You don't want to hear things about, oh, it's just annoying, it just doesn't feel necessary, and it's just kind of a shame because, the series doesn't have really a good reputation on final bosses.
Final bosses, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, of course with Demon Souls was bad because it's just a slug. So you kind of have to pick and choose what your final boss, what you want as a final boss, like King Allant, where you're fighting the old dude. At the end of Boltarian Palace, you can basically, if you want to, technically consider him a final boss if you want, because I mean he's really pretty much the last good boss you fight in Demon Souls, and then you got to fight the slug, and so it wouldn't bother me at all. People are like, "Oh yeah, that's the final boss." I'm like, "Yeah, that's totally fine."
Yeah, honestly, Dark Souls 1 probably had the best final boss.
Hmm.
Gwen was just a classic.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's hard to beat the music.
yeah.
And one thing about Gwyn is that it's so interesting how parrying is one of the most effective ways to defeat him. Instead of exploring his iframes, which I to this day I still find his iframes really weird when it comes to dodging through his attacks. I don't know what it is. It just I don't know. I need to. I'm on my soul level 1 playthrough, so I'm going to use that time to definitely discover his
Explorer.
iframes. But the problem is the long run to him definitely prevents exploration in that manner. Because if I die, I gotta spend like 2 minutes running back, and then I get to fight him again.
Yeah. I mean, I think for your purposes, it wouldn't be too bad to maybe play that game on PC, and then just get yourself a save state right in front of the boss room.
Oh, there is a
'Cause,
there is a
you know,
mod for
it's
that.
not like. I'm sorry.
There's a mod for that.
Oh, I'm sure there is a mod for that.
Oh, okay.
If you're just looking to fight, you can put yourself at the beginning of the boss room at any time you want. So, essentially, yeah, you would be using cheats, but it's for the purpose of learning
Right.
and not wasting time having to do one thing over and over again. So
Yeah, and I wouldn't use that if let's just say if I was into speed runs, I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't use that for that purpose. Definitely. Well, you couldn't use it for that purpose anyway. But I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if anyone even uses that for speed runs or mods for speed runs. They probably want to use the organic game itself because it's
yeah, no,
probably
generally, especially if it's something that you're gonna post as
yeah,
proof of doing something or whatever, you're not gonna use either mods or cheats or anything, but
yeah,
you're doing it because you're trying to learn everything that you can about the boss while also practicing. You're
yeah.
just saving yourself the headache and the annoyance of having to go back and forth all the time.
Right, exactly. And one thing I do to save time, if I'm not getting one shotted, is that if I get hit, I quit and restart. But that's only for when I'm just doing a no damage run, and when I'm very comfortable with the boss already. So, I mean, so when it comes to just covering iframes, I mean, if I can take enough damage, I can just roll out of the way. So really, the best way to do it is just to kind of tank up a character. And if I take
That's
damage, I'm
how I
like,
get
oh,
high
okay,
level.
well, I need to obviously not do that again, instead of just practicing with a soul level 1 character.
Yeah, so level 1 can be rough because you basically die in one hit, so it's
No.
not. It makes it a little bit more harder to learn and practice.
Yep.
That's for sure.
And it's
Just
been
if you're dying in one hit.
Man, that soul level 1 playthrough has been very interesting. It wasn't that drastically different from what I've already been doing because I usually cap myself at soul level 55. And really, the only difference I've noticed in the soul level 1 was the different damage input that you have to work around because you cannot upgrade your standard weapon and expect decent damage. You actually have to go to Anor Londo and upgrade your weapon with lightning. That way, you're doing
Yeah.
like about 500, tag points per strike. At least that's what my weapon is. I'm using the battle axe. And also,
No, yeah,
another big
that's
difference
about
is
right.
the lack of weapons that you have.
Well, in Dark Souls 1, when I did my first Soul Level 1 playthrough, I ended up using the flame, the flame hand. I forgot
Pyro?
what it's named. The pyromancy hand.
Yeah.
You just max that out, and basically that carries you through the game, especially on the the Four Kings. Oh my gosh, if I didn't have a pyromancy flame maxed out, at soul level 1, I wouldn't have been able to beat it. It's just you don't do enough damage. It would be too many kings on the screen.
Yeah, that's one of the things I don't like about Four Kings. It's just you got to kill them fast, or you're just going to be dealing with a bunch of RNG. Unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a rough boss fight.
But yeah, I heard that Pyromancy is definitely a very popular thing to use for Soul Level 1. I'm just very stubborn, and I'm like, I want to just use a battle axe with
You want to
lightning
use
infused.
melee? Yeah, no, I definitely get that. I wasn't going for a challenge run,
Oh,
or
okay.
well, I mean, technically, Soul Level 1 is a challenge run, but I wasn't really trying to limit myself like that. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I sort of just wanted to do it. I've done every Souls game Soul Level 1 so far, except for Elden Ring. I haven't finished Elden Ring Soul Level 1 yet, but it's actually not that bad, believe it or not, Soul Level 1 Elden Ring.
Yeah,
Because you have so many tools at your disposal.
I was actually for maybe a few bosses I was at level 1. I think only because I didn't have the ability to level up, so I just for the first few bosses I recorded for, I was actually ruin level 1, and so that was really cool. Because I think I was even level 1 for the Watchdog, the Farum Watchdog, the creepy looking boss, the one that looks like a
Uh,
cat but it's called a Watchdog.
I know which one's the one in the catacomb. I remember that one.
Yeah, yeah. That boss is almost really cool. I mean, almost really good. I mean, it is a cool boss, but I think the moveset definitely could have been a lot better. But
The moveset messes with me
yeah,
because he looks like he's slow, but then the attack comes out instantly. It's like,
mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, you got a lot of
that
delayed attacks
definitely
in Elden
messed
Ring in
me up.
general.
Yeah, that
Well,
messed me up.
what's your favorite boss in Elden Ring right now?
It's kind of tough. I have a few favorite bosses. It's hard to pick between them. I know you weren't a fan of Malekith, but I did really like the Malekith boss fight. But that's probably because of my build when I was fighting it. I was
Okay.
a dragon for the most part. I was using a lot of dragon moves, and it just felt like, I was dragon versus wolf. I don't know. It kind of worked out. It was kind of fun. I do really like Horalu. I think that's a really cool boss fight. I really like Moog when you fight him in the Mogwen Palace.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Melania. It's hard because most of the in-game bosses are just so cool. It's hard to pick like a favorite for me.
Uh huh.
Um, I can tell you my least favorite bosses.
Okay. What's your bottom of the barrel boss?
Bottom of the barrel, Godskin Duo. I think
Yep, that's
the
exactly mine
funnest fight.
too. That boss almost destroyed my enjoyment for Elden Ring entirely.
Yeah, that
And
was
it's not
not a
that it
fun
was
boss.
difficult; it was just so poorly designed, underdeveloped, just no thought putting. And that's my biggest problem about Elden Ring are the duo fights in general. They're,
Yeah.
what were they thinking when they just decided to throw these bosses together and then just like, oh well, that
Yeah.
works.
I know. There's some random like two bosses that they'll put together, and I'm like, wait, like why? Why would you do this?
Mm-hmm.
No, I definitely agree. A lot of the duo fights not good, but Godskin Duo definitely the worst fight in the
And
games, hands down.
the thing about the Godskin Duo, it's almost a really good boss. It just has so many problematic aspects to the design that it's just not enjoyable. Like
Yeah.
the rolling thing. I think I
Oh
almost
my
found a
god.
very viable strategy for the rolling, but it's just not consistent enough. Because I think I was able to roll with his rolling attack, but when I tried it again, for some reason it just didn't work. So I must have found a very specific window to just run with the roll. But the problem with that is, if you're doing that, you might just get hit by the little orb
The
thing that
other
the other
one.
Godskin throws at you.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't a fan of that. It's like you're trying to dodge an actually difficult move to dodge, but there's another one just sitting there spamming and doing
Hmm.
literally anything he can to hit you. It's like, really, dude? Come on.
And I've watched level 1 videos on YouTube, and they're like 10 minutes long. And
Oh my
I watched
gosh.
them, and I'm like, there are several moments where the person obviously got lucky. And I'm like,
Yeah,
this person probably tried for hours and then finally found a combination of movement that worked more in his favor, and RNG was just on his side because
yeah.
there's
It
just
worked
no
once, and it
consistency
was
in that
just
fight.
Yeah, it would take them hours to try to get the same thing to happen again. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that's not fun. Like I love learning the boss and getting good at it to the point where, I am able to dodge everything. But when there's so much RNG and so much that you have to rely on luck, it's just not a fun fight at that point.
And one thing I struggle with when it comes to talking to people about this is when they're I'll say something about the duo fights and how they're just not very well designed and underdeveloped. They'll say, "Oh, well, those duo fights are made for spirit summons." I'm like, yeah, but generally these games are made where you can play bare bones and the game works just fine. I mean, why would they just suddenly want to make a game where you have to use spirit summons in order to get a fair fight? Is and
No, I mean I agree. Don't get me wrong. I can see both points,
mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you don't want the player to be forced to engage with a system that they don't want to.
Yeah,
You know, like you want the player to be able to do things their own way, but not just necessarily like punish them for it, if you will. Just
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just
yeah.
um, I don't like spirit summons. I don't mind if other people use them. It's totally fine with me. It's just I don't like the boss being distracted by something else while I just hit them in the back. I just do not like that. I don't really find it very rewarding.
Right. At that point, it's the same as summoning somebody else.
Yeah, and a lot of people they just kind of quit. Whenever I release these videos, these reviews, and I'm doing I'm playing by myself. I have no heads up display, and people, usually they just have nothing to say. But hey, why aren't you using a spirit summon? I'm like, well, I mean, because I'm clearly applying a very specific playstyle. I mean, clearly I know
Yeah.
what they are, but I just don't want to use them. And it's just weird
Yeah.
having to explain them to people, and they're like, "Oh, I mean, it's just part of the game. What's the big deal?" I'm like, I just don't find them satisfying to use, and people can get very stubborn online because I'm like, listen, I don't care if you use these tools given to you in the game. That's totally fine. I don't like them, and
I don't want to use it. Right.
yeah,
Yeah. You have your own play style. I have
mm-hmm,
my own. Let me play the way that I want to play, right?
right, yeah, and yeah. But one thing I
No,
kind of have to
I
draw the
definitely,
line at,
I see. I
huh?
see where, I was gonna say, I see where you're coming from for sure. Don't force people into a play style just because the game has something in it doesn't mean I have to engage with it.
Yeah, and I like to encourage my playstyle. Sometimes, obviously I don't force to say you have to do it or it's the true experience. Now, sometimes I might contradict myself sometimes where I'm like, oh, well, if you're killing a boss in 30 seconds, then you didn't fully experience it, because I'm like, you got, you know what I mean? Some people, they'll say stuff like, oh, well, I believe in experiencing everything in the game using all the tools. I'm like, well, according to your logic, shouldn't you see and react to every attack a boss has properly? I mean, so it's a constant back and forth sometimes with stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, you can't really fight with people about
Yeah.
it. It's one of those things where you just like we'll agree to disagree. You
Mm-hmm.
have your play style, the thing that you like to do, and I have mine.
Yeah.
I mean, I used spirit summons. When I found out you could use spirit summons, I was halfway through the game when I realized, oh, I have to talk to I didn't know you had to talk to
Ronnie.
what's her name? Yeah, to Ronnie in order to get the actual spirit calling bell. I didn't know that. So, I was in this group chat with all my friends and that we were all playing Elden Ring sort of together, if you will. Like we were in different parts of the world map, but we were all kind of playing together. Some people were in Caelid, other people were in Liurnia, and then we were just all enjoying the game.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, did you fight this boss or whatever?" I used this spirit summon and it was great. It was a fun experience or whatever. I'm like, "What do you mean? How do you use the spirit summons?" I found them. I found a bunch of them, but I didn't know how to use them. They're like, "Yeah, you gotta talk to Ronnie." I'm like, "Wait, what do you mean?"
That was.
it was,
Oh, sorry.
it was just fun. No,
It
no, it's just a funny experience that I didn't know how to summon anything for literally half the game.
and that's a very unfortunate side for me because I mean, like I said, I don't use spirit summons. I don't really like the Ash of War attacks that much. I think maybe a few of them I really like, but as far as using them in a boss fight, I just didn't really find them necessary. And at the very beginning of the game, you're handed all these Ash of War tools and spirit summons, and I'm like, I can't even use any of these because I don't want them.
Oh no, yeah, it's funny, yeah. Ashes of War. It's one of those things that you probably wouldn't have been able to experience depending on your weapon choice too. Especially since I've seen a lot of your videos where you're using the Golem Halberd, and I'm like, oh, you can't. I don't even know if you can switch to Ash of War for that weapon. It only has the one Ash of War, so you probably would have never experienced any of that. Even if you had wanted to, if you kept using just that weapon.
Well, I do use them to scale with strength, and that's it. I don't use them for their special effects.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I played so much of Elden Ring when it came out.
Oh yeah.
I played so much. I think by the time I stopped playing, I had 700 hours. I was surprised at the
Mm.
time when I was looking at it. I was like, "Holy smoke! I didn't realize I played this much of it." But I did do basically everything. I got everything on my main character. I had multiple other characters. I played a ton of PvP. I explored playing soul level 1. I did basically everything that I wanted, and I had a ton of fun with that game. But I did it so quickly. Like I basically only played Elden Ring for the longest time. Any chance I got, I played it.
Hmm.
And then now I'm not playing it at all.
Well, yeah, it's so great that we have all these, all these games from software because I can play these games every year and just never get bored of them. I'm always finding something to do, some kind of new standard to apply for myself and make the game more interesting and just dig deeper into iframes and learn how to avoid every attack, properly. And like before Elden Ring came out, I went back to Nameless King, and I learned to appreciate him significantly more just according just how much my playstyle has changed. I fought him without the heads up display and just that final strike. Just knowing that I was going to kill him at any moment, I just didn't know when. And the moment you just kind of hear that sound effect of him, just this entire health bar drained. It's just incredibly satisfying, and that's another thing I definitely recommend for people. I'm like, just go to the very beginning of a game, turn off the heads-up display, fight the first boss, and see how you feel when you defeat the boss without the heads-up display, because it's got a
Yeah,
very.
not knowing when the last hit is coming is definitely euphoric. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those moments where you can't really explain to somebody. They have to experience it.
Oh yeah, and I jokingly, I'm like, oh, I wish the DLC boss had a boss name that's so long it blocks the screen, so you have to disable the heads-up display to fight it. That would be
That
so wild.
You know what game I think would do something like that? Believe it or not, like Nier. I played Nier Automata, I think either this year or like at the end of last year for the first time. And that game is actually a really, really, really good game. I
Hmm.
recommend anybody to try it, especially if you like action games and you like iframes, you like being able to dodge and parry and all of that stuff. That is a game for you. Honestly, I wholeheartedly recommend that you play it. It's a great game.
I played one of them. It was free. It was available through Plus. I'm not sure if it's the exact same one, but it felt. I talked to a friend of mine, and I was like, "Man, why does this game feel so similar to Dragon Guard?" He's like, "It's like, did you look that up or
It,
something?" I'm like,
it's made
"No,
by this.
I played it back in the PS2 days, and it just has kind of like a similar tone and gameplay. I don't know. There's something about it that makes this reminds me of Dragon Guard." And he was like, "Well, you do know it was made by the same developers." I'm like, "Oh, really?
Yeah, it's technically a sequel.
It is a sequel?"
Yeah, technically it's all in the same universe. Dragon Guard and the first Nier and the Nier or well, yeah, Nier Automata and then Replicant. Yeah, they're all in the same universe.
It's funny because I don't remember a thing about Drakengard. I just remember how I felt while playing it. It was such a weird game, and I don't know. I remember little small things. I think I remember like a creepy little girl and something about covenants, dragon covenants, I think. And I know it was a very open. The gameplay experience was very open, and I think it was like Dynasty Warriors a little bit, possibly. I don't know. Maybe my brain's just trying to piece together what I believe it used to be, but maybe it's totally different compared to what I remember.
Yeah, no, I don't remember too much about that particular game. I remember the original Nier back on the PS3. Was it PS3? I don't remember. And I never played it, but I actually watched one of my friends play a ton of it, and then when Nier Automata came out, obviously, most people that got into that game got into it because of 2B, the main character. They're like, oh wow, pretty anime chick. Let me play this game and find out, but the game is surprisingly deep, very, story heavy, but not to the point where it's spoon-fed to you. You sort of explore it at your own pace, and you can do side quests to kind of understand more of what's happening. But the actual action, the combat is what keeps me coming back. It's so good, and, just there's so much that you can do, and your play style would probably be a good fit for that game, in my opinion.
Okay. Maybe I can give it another look. Sometimes I'm wondering if I need to even apply that much effort into another game other than the From Software games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean. Especially if you don't have a lot of time. I can understand that.
I'm constantly jumping all over the place, and I don't put as much. I don't know. It depends on what mood I'm in. Maybe it's just when I'm not as down, emotionally, I guess. I don't know. I guess right now I'm kind of feeling really good because I'm going to games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and trying to make it more difficult so I can enjoy it more because I finished Red Dead Redemption. It's kind of similar to Horizon Zero Dawn where I was trying to like it and I could not like it. And I went back to it and I forgot that there are challenges added to each mission. So I'm like, I wonder if I would enjoy it more if I actually had things, very specific things I had to do during the mission. I wonder if I would like the game more.
And that ended up working out for you then?
Let's see. I haven't tried on Red Dead Redemption 2 yet. I was fixing to today, but I just couldn't get around to it. But I did try it on Grand Theft Auto 5. And I did appreciate the mission design significantly more. Like the very first design where you're trying to beat, where you're playing as Franklin and you're trying to beat his friend in a race. That design is very questionable, by the way, where you had to beat him in the parking lot because at first you're following him around and he's rubber banding. And then they're expecting you to eventually beat him, so I thought that was kind of weird. But I think it's maybe the second one I'm thinking about the most, where you have a shootout, and I'm having to pay attention to the accuracy of my shooting, and let's see, paying attention to things going on in the mission itself, like shooting the gas line leading up to the vehicle to cause an explosion. Also, the time limit that you have, where you have to wrap it up obviously within the time limit. So at the very end of the shootout, a guy takes off on a moped, and I found out that you can just simply shoot him before he just takes off, so you don't even have to chase him down. And I just remember it so well. I'm like, man, if I didn't do those challenges, I would have totally forgotten about the mission itself, like I did when I played it back in 2013. I don't remember that mission at all, but now that I applied those challenges that the game implemented, I remember it so much more now.
Oh, that's interesting. It definitely, so it sticks out with you more because you had to do so much more. You were more involved.
Yeah, and that's one thing people don't seem to get about why difficulty is so important in video games. It's all about memorization and long-term memory of the game. Because a lot of people, they remember the game and having fun with it, but they don't really remember very specific things because the game's not designed to be difficult enough for it to stick with you. And that's why we got games like Battletoads and Lion King, for Super Nintendo, still being remembered because of how brutal they were in design. I don't necessarily agree with how they were difficult, because a lot of games were designed to be, unreasonably punishing because of the rental sales, because they made these games where you couldn't beat them and you can continuously gain, rental, sales from it.
It was the arcade era.
Yeah.
You'll use one more quarter to try to beat it the next time.
And that's why the From Software games, introducing Demon Souls was just so important to me, because here is a game that's obviously made to be difficult, but in a very fair and reasonable way, and you can still remember it. And I just want more games to apply that. And then you got people saying, "Oh, we'll just switch to hard mode." I'm like, the problem with that is the game's not designed around that difficulty. When you press
artificial.
Oh yeah, when you press new game, what difficulty is highlighted first?
Normal mode.
Yep, normal mode. And that's the mode I'm going to start picking from now on. I used to be, very very egotistical about and say, "Oh, I'm going to pick hard mode because, I played From Software games and it should be the exact same thing."
No.
And
and you know what?
I learned the hard way where I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
No, go ahead.
I learned the hard way, no pun intended, that it does not work that way. The game's not going to play out the way you think the way the From Software games work, because the game the enemies become bullet sponges. It's just endurance based difficulty is basically what it turns it into, like God of War. All the God of War games.
Just about to mention God of War. That's exactly what I was going to say. I made the mistake of starting out God of War, the newest one, God of War 2018. I made the mistake of playing that game on hard mode on my first playthrough. And mistake it was. That was not a fun, first, 30 hours that I played that game was not fun. Because every enemy was just taking so long to kill.
Mm-hmm.
I got to the point where, and I streamed the whole thing. I streamed the whole playthrough.
Really?
Yeah. This was back on YouTube. I still have the VODs. They're on my YouTube channel, but it's I did not have fun with that game on hard mode. But, as you get towards the end game, you start actually leveling up your stuff. Everything becomes balanced again. But playing that game from the beginning on hard mode, no, don't do it. It's not a good idea because it's not balanced for that. It's just, you gotta be a masochist to do it. It's just, it wasn't much fun.
I actually finished the game on Give Me a Challenge mode on my first playthrough, and I just, it was tough, but I also really just didn't enjoy it that much because of just how much it dragged on, and I was just so dedicated to playing it because it was a very fun cinematic experience, and it was just enough for me to just push through. But there was just a lot of scenarios where I'm like, do what?
No, I was gonna say that's exactly how I ended up, beating into, or why I ended up continuing. It's because it was good enough. The story was good enough. The next area that you had to explore and the challenges that you had to fight was just good enough that it pushed me through to actually beat the game. But other than that, I probably will not do that with the next game. I'll just play it on normal mode.
And it kind of is kind of silly when you have people say, "Oh, well, God of War give me God of War is harder than Dark Souls." I'm like, yeah, but you're missing the whole point of Dark Souls design by saying that.
Yeah. A lot of people don't understand the difficulty of a Souls game.
And oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's challenging, but at the same time, it's a very fair challenge. Every Souls game can be defeated at level 1. You don't have to take any damage if you learn the patterns and know how to dodge the enemies. And, nothing feels like, well, except for Gods Can Do It, but nothing feels like it's, not balanced to the point where you're going to have to grind and level up so you can overcome the challenge.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's that option. You can do that, but at the same time, the game is balanced in a way where your knowledge of what you're doing in the fight and what how you're playing the game, your knowledge is much more important than your stats.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't seem to understand that when it comes to difficulty.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll ask people online, and when I say online, I'm talking about Facebook, Reddit, where a lot of these, where a lot of silliness, happens, and you see a lot of weird opinions. And I'll ask people simply whenever they have a post. You'll see posts pretty much maybe several times a day. You'll see a post saying, "Which game is harder? Which is it? Elden Ring, Bloodborne?" And I'll post a simple question saying, "Based on what?" They're like, difficulty in the game. I'm like, yeah, but what is that difficulty based on? They're like,
Right.
oh, well, when you play the game, when a boss kills you, and I'm like, yeah, but why? They just can't seem to answer it for some reason.
Yeah. No, it's difficult for people to understand the concept of a challenge
Yeah,
when,
I mean, I'm
they haven't had that type of experience,
I,
especially with a Souls game.
and I'm not calling people stupid by any means. I'm just saying that a lot of people just don't really grasp the design itself because I don't know why. I don't know. It's because they just play. I don't know if they maybe look up OP builds when they first play a game, or maybe they forgot why the design is so important in the games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. Like, a lot of people, especially if they don't have experience playing certain games that are, balanced, when it comes to
No.
difficulty, um, if they don't have that experience and the only thing that they know is picking from a menu, easy, normal,
Mm-hmm.
hard, then they're not gonna get it. And I think at the end of the day, I guess you can't really fault them for that. People are just, yeah, at the end of the day, they're some of the sum of their experiences. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a shame that the summoning has dramatically dropped in the older games. Like even with Demon Souls for PS5, obviously it's just a modern day upgrade of the original game. But even that game, the summoning has dropped significantly just because it is just simply an older game, and people just they want to move on to the more advanced stuff. However, the exploits still remain in Demon Souls and Dark Souls, and I feel like just because of those exploits, distributed through YouTube, people don't need to summon anyone anymore. And it does still happen on occasion. I mean, I've sat down with my summon sign on Dark Souls at the Gargoyles for maybe 2 hours, and I get one summon. And I understand it's the very beginning of the game, but I just kind of miss. I really miss the days where the game was young. People didn't know hardly anything about the game, and when you help them defeat a boss, they're very grateful. They send you messages and you communicate, and it just doesn't
yeah.
happen anymore. And it's not just with the Gargoyles; it's with Smough and Ornstein. A boss that's considered the most difficult in Dark Souls, and I'm not even getting summoned for that one.
Yeah. So the online community, basically, I feel like there's definitely not a ton of new players playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the players that are veterans, either they don't think they need summons or they don't care about summoning players, or lastly, it was just they don't think anybody else is playing.
Yeah, and
So
so that's one thing I definitely miss. In these games, the older games, is just helping people out and just showing them something different about the bosses, and you just don't have that connection anymore. You try to go online and look for someone, but most of the time someone's going to have a bad attitude, unfortunately. Compared to actually meeting people in the game, I meet friendlier people from in-game experiences than compared to online. And what I've been doing lately is whenever I do get summoned on Dark Souls and they happen to defeat the boss, or they don't, or maybe they die in a very funny way, I'll just send a very friendly message saying, "Oh man, didn't see that one coming," or something silly, just kind of break the ice and sometimes I'll have really good conversations with people. I'm like, hey, what brings you to Dark Souls in 2022? And they're like, oh, well, I want to do this run, this very, specific run, and it's very nice for a brief moment. And at least I still have that. It's just trying to hunt to find that. It just kind of sucks, having to spend a few hours with my summon sign down just to find one person to talk to.
No, I definitely hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know what though? I joined the Souls Discord channels. There's the Demon Souls and then the Elden Ring. The Demon Souls Discord is probably the best one because it deals with all of the Souls games.
Hmm.
The Demon Souls Discord, a lot of players will post something like, "Oh yeah, I would need some help at this boss or whatever. Does anybody have a summon sign?" And then, you'll go from there. But the best part about those Discord servers, in my opinion, is because they have community events where they'll say, "Hey, return to Lordran." They do it like once a year for Return to Lordran,
Yeah.
where a bunch of people are going back and playing Dark Souls 1, and it's just it feels like a game that's alive again. It's just fun.
Yes.
So maybe check those guys out.
You said it's called Demon Souls.
Yeah, the Demon Souls Discord. Here, let me see if I can pull that up while I'm on here. I'm not super well versed with the Discord. Alright, so Demon Souls, there it is. All right.
Oh, by the way, once this podcast is done and everything, and on YouTube, it's gonna have footage of me doing a solo of one playthrough. Now, I was hoping to be able to download it straight because I streamed a bunch of bosses on Facebook. A bunch of bosses I had set up, and so I had to actually record the stream. I couldn't download it because I thought it could. I think you can only download certain videos, or maybe you can't even download streamed videos. So the quality may be in and out, unfortunately. But I just didn't want to start recording after skipping so many bosses. Like I think I'm at the Four Kings. I mean, at least so. I want, even though the quality is gonna be bad, kind of like I said, in and out. It's still good. It'll just be kind of fuzzy at times. So. Unfortunately, that's the footage I have. I just wanted to show, how I handled the bosses in Soul Level 1. I just didn't want to have a huge skip, because people are going to be wondering, like, oh, where are the other bosses? He must have done this and that. I'm like, no, I streamed it on Facebook, and I couldn't download the high quality.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. It's fine. I'm not worried about it if that's what you're.
Yeah, I just wanted to address it for someone that's maybe concerned, watching this podcast, like, oh, why is the quality so blurry? Is there something wrong with my connection? I probably should have mentioned it at the very beginning, but if you happen to watch it and notice that being blurry is not your connection, it's just unfortunately I had to record the stream, just buffering online.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, that's no problem.
I'll try from now on just to use the my capture card because I was using OBS and I don't think you can record from there and stream at the same time, or if you can, I don't know how to use it. I haven't learned how to use it yet.
I used Streamlabs. It used to be called Streamlabs OBS, but they had they had some problems with that. But I use Streamlabs, and you're actually able to record and stream at the same time. Usually, I'll keep a copy of my VODs, just on I have a 4 terabyte separate hard drive, just in case I need to make some edits that I haven't been doing anyway because I've been too lazy. Editing is annoying, man. It takes too long.
In order to to edit these podcasts, I had to upgrade my RAM in my computer because it was only 8 gigabytes for years. And then here recently, I'm like, I think I need more RAM. I think I need to go up to 16 gigabytes. So I went to Best Buy and bought some, put it in my PC, and then I found out that my editing software is too old. I had to pay for an upgrade just so it could run properly. And it turns out I have another program that's too old, and I had to pay for an upgrade, but that one's not as important. That one's more like using an image to place on top of a video. It's where it struggles, the animation export. I can still create thumbnails on it just fine. It's just I can't export anything because the whole thing crashes.
Oh, dang, that's rough. You know what I've been doing since you have PS5? I absolutely love Share Factory as a video editor. Um, you can import any video to edit on your PS5 if you want to. The only problem is I think it only allows you to upload like a certain limit, like in terms of megabytes or gigabytes or whatever. So the video can't be too long for you to be able to edit it. But what you could do is you can use it. You can upload it into chunks. So like you do 15 minutes, 15 minutes, or 30 minutes and 30 minutes, and you import it that way. And then you can actually use the Share Factory to edit, and I think that is literally one of the best video editors I've ever used. And I wish there was a paid version of the same one that I could use on my PC, honestly.
Yeah, I've used it. It is really good.
Yeah, I really wish there was a one like that I could use on my PC.
Yeah, I actually use a Pinnacle, and it's pretty good until you have to purchase an upgrade for it. That's really the biggest downside. It's just like, oh, we're gonna create this software, and it's gonna run like crap when you need, an upgrade, for maybe a year or two from now.
Ah, dang, that's how they get you.
Yeah, and like the editing software is so good, but I'm getting scanned basically. I'm like But it's like, it's whatever. It's only like, I wait for it to get on sale. Like, I think it was 50% off for like $70. I'm like, okay, screw it. I'll just go ahead and buy it. I don't agree with it. I realize that I probably could have something better, but it's what I have, it's what I'm used to. It works fine, so whatever, it's whatever.
Yeah, learning a new editing software can be pretty rough.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up because the baby's probably going to get hungry, and I got to eat myself, and then I got to go to bed and go to work tomorrow.
No problem, dude. Yeah, it's been a fun talk.
Oh yeah, I'm glad that I have Discord and able to do these really long podcasts, and I've been able to talk to a lot of people lately. Because I had to lower down my standard of having like 2 other people to talk to, and talking to just one other person is good enough. It's just nice having a bunch of people to bounce off of. But if I want podcasts to be kind of a regular thing weekly, then I got to realize I'm like, okay, well I'm just probably going to have just one person to talk to most of the time.
Sometimes you can't get a group together, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and close out. Definitely appreciate Twilight. Definitely check him out on his YouTube channel if you wanted to give them the details on that.
You know what? I don't even remember it now, but let me take a look. I think I'm still under Twilight _TA, Twilight TWILITE _TA. I haven't posted too much recently, but I'm working on a couple of videos for stuff for Monster Hunter Rise. I've been playing that. It's been fun. I figured I have a couple of helpful tip videos that I'm working on. Other than that, that's about it. I play a bunch of random games, mostly Souls series, Monster Hunter, Pokemon. I'll see you there if you want to catch some of that.
Okay, do you have like your Twitch name you want to give out?
You know what? I've actually stopped using my Twitch channel.
Oh.
It is still available, but I have not streamed on there probably in almost a year.
You don't stream at all now?
Going back. Huh?
You don't stream at all now?
No, I haven't streamed on Twitch probably in about a year. I'm seeing if I want to go back to YouTube in terms of streaming, but we'll see how that pans out. I haven't streamed in a little bit, but
Okay.
videos are are still out there.
Yeah, I stream on Facebook most of the time because I feel like I can get the most activity out of people. Because I just want to talk to people, and on Facebook I can share to groups where my live feed is constantly being bumped up, and I can get a bunch of it's almost guaranteed I can get someone in and talking to me.
Oh, nice. I haven't done anything on Facebook or seen anything in terms of the live stream scene, but I know a lot of people have been using it, especially recently.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I have to check that out.
I joked with this one guy. He was like, "Oh man, you should probably have 4,000 subs by now." I'm like, man, I don't want that many people because I want to be able to talk to like maybe a couple people at a time. But when it comes to like 4,000 people commenting at the same time, it kind of just destroys the whole discussion point of streaming.
It's too fast.
Yeah, way too fast. At least it has a. Well, I know YouTube has a slowdown option where you can still talk to people at a decent pace. Because I think that you can only comment once every minute or something like that. I don't know how it works exactly, but that works pretty well.
Yeah, no, I think Twitch has a similar feature. YouTube's is probably better, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, once again, I'm Gay Charlie, and I try to post podcasts. Right now, I'm trying to post at least a few every week whenever I can get someone to talk. I'm hoping I can have another new person on. He's big into Monster Hunter also, and he's trying to work on his YouTube channel. But he also has a lot of just personal things he's working through. Of course, so he's on a hiatus. So hopefully I can have him on next time. If not, he'll probably be Anarchy Dying again, or some of the people I had in the early podcasts. But I want to thank everybody for watching, and Twilight, I'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks for having me on.
All right,
later, everybody.
All right, bye.
Later.